So here's the thing. We've definitely heard some whoppers from Joe Biden throughout his presidential campaign, but most of the time, I know, guys, I like to be generous. I really do. I like to be generous. I don't really blame Biden most of the time because here's the thing. Hear me out. He has staff that writes things for him. He has a teleprompter. He isn't altogether there. He just reads what's written. Yeah, is it his responsibility? Yeah, sure. But dude has dementia. Come on. It's kind of like if we blamed a puppy for the things that the owner trained the puppy to do. Biden isn't the one running the show, and we all know it, except for this. I do not blame Biden's staff for the whopper of a lie that Biden just told. I blame Joe Biden himself. And as far as I'm concerned, and you all know I'm voting for Trump, I have not made that any secret. There was absolutely no shot I was ever going to vote for Joe Biden. But now I'm going to go so far as to say that Joe Biden has disqualified himself for the presidency, so far as I'm concerned, with the whopper of a lie that he just told, because he's not lying about inconsequential things now he is relying on the stupidity of the American people to convince them of something that is absolutely not in any way, shape, or form true, and it is not an inconsequential thing. It is the Supreme flipping court. This is from Fox News. Biden reporters should focus on Republicans after pressed on court packing stance. Now, we all know that neither Joe Biden nor Kamala Harris will answer the question of if they plan to pack the Supreme Court. But I really hope that no one lets them off the hook on this one. They've got to give a yes or no answer, because this is not an inconsequential thing. This is a really, 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 frankly, critically important thing to our society continuing to be able to function. Packing the court is a horrible, stupid idea that no politician, not Donald Trump, not Joe Biden, should even consider. It would be the start of the absolute breakdown of a system of government that we have had in place for almost 250 years. And I'm going to explain why in this video. So we're going to read about the epic lie that Biden just told, the worst lie I've heard him tell yet. And I'm going to talk about why packing the Supreme Court is a really, really bad idea. But before we get into that, listen, folks, I've got about 20 days left to meet my goal of getting 100,000 subs on this channel before Election Day. Now, I lost some subs yesterday because I said some things that pissed Republicans off, and regardless of what people say about Republicans being open-minded to ideas, not all of them are, and I knew that going into it. So, whatever, little bit of a setback, but we've got a little bit of ground to make up now. I have no regrets, by the way. I am always going to say exactly what I think, regardless of if I think you guys want to hear it or not. But if you have been enjoying the content, if you've been enjoying the videos I've been putting out, I do daily content around news, politics, culture, lots of like social justice and critical race theory stuff. I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel, turning on notifications, leaving a comment below, sharing it out to your friends, all that good stuff. It really helps me grow the channel and hopefully will help me get to that 100,000 subscriber goal that I have by Election Day so I can get my little YouTube plaque and then retire. No, I'm not really going to retire. That's a joke, but I do actually want to hit that number. So thank you guys in advance. I really appreciate it. Let's hear about the lie that Joe Biden just told. Democratic nominee Joe Biden said reporters should be focused on Republicans pushing through a Supreme Court nomination rather than his opinion on court packing, because of course he refuses to answer yes or no about whether or not he's going to pack the Supreme Court, which in leftist speak means absolutely Joe Biden is 100% going to pack the Supreme Court if he gets elected to office, and we should all be worried about that. It is not good. If Donald Trump was going to we're talking about packing the Supreme Court, I would say the same thing. I'd be like, no, Trump, bad Trump. No, this is not something that we want to mess with. But apparently Joe Biden thinks that you are all too stupid to understand what is meant by packing the Supreme Court. Here's what he said. The only court packing going on right now is going on with Republicans. It's not constitutional what they're doing. We should be focused on what's happening right now. The only packing going on in this country is being packed now by Republicans after the vote has already begun. Liar! Liar, Joe Biden. That is not what packing the court is. What the Republicans and what the president are doing right now are perfectly constitutional. In fact, let's just look at this article on uscourts.gov under justices. Like all federal judges, justices are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. This is the way it works. Now, I understand that you might not be thrilled about the timing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death and the fact that Donald Trump is in office and gets to appoint a new justice. But guess what, folks? That is the way it is. That is the luck of the draw. Elections have consequences. The president did his job. The Senate is now doing their job. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's unconstitutional, and it doesn't mean it's packing the court. This is not remotely the definition of packing the court. What packing the court means is that you are going to change the number of justices on the Supreme Court to add more from your side because you don't like the makeup of the court and you're gonna weight the balance of power. You can see here, this has not happened since the flipping Civil War. Over the years, various acts of Congress have altered the number of seats on the Supreme Court from a low of 5 to a high of 10. Shortly after the Civil War, the number of seats on the court was fixed at 9. This has been the same number of justices for 150 flipping years. Now let's talk about what might happen if Joe Biden gets elected and he decides to pack the court in the real way, not in the lie that he just told. Nominating a justice when there is a vacancy and having a confirmation hearing is not packing the court. Packing the court is much more dangerous than that. Let's look at this article from Real Clear Politics. What will happen if the Democrats pack the Supreme Court? Exponential growth. It's why plagues are so dangerous and compound interest is so wonderful. It's also why the Democrats flirting with court packing could destroy the Supreme Court and America as we know it. The following is a reasonable scenario. Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed to the Supreme Court, which gives conservatives a 6-3 advantage or 5-4, given that Chief Justice John Roberts has essentially become a swing vote. And by the way, this underscores the fact that you never actually know how justices on the Supreme Court are going to vote. You really don't. Many times when conservative justices or justices who we think are conservative, or they're maybe appointed by like a Republican president, they can sometimes end up being actually really liberal. So, you know, what a justice has done or what type of president they're appointed by doesn't necessarily translate into what they will do on the Supreme Court. And John Roberts is a perfect example of that. Let's keep going. Then in January, having retained the Democratic majority House, a President Joe Biden and a newly controlled Democratic Senate decide to undo that 6-3 advantage. Congress passes and Biden signs a new law expanding the court to 15 members. Biden appoints 6 new liberal justices, handing the left a 9-6 majority, a 60% advantage. That is what they're talking about when they say packing the Supreme Court. It is not about having a Supreme Court vacancy, nominating a replacement justice, and then having confirmation hearings, which is exactly what the Republicans are doing. So when Joe Biden says the only court packing going on right now is going on with the Republicans, it's not constitutional what they're doing, liar. Liar, Joe Biden. Blatant lie. I get that you weren't working on a teleprompter that time, but dude, this is disqualifying so far as I'm concerned. This is absolutely disqualifying. He thinks you're stupid. That is why Biden is saying this. He thinks you're stupid and he thinks you don't understand what it actually means. What happens when Republicans regain power and they want a 60% conservative advantage? As a bit of algebra shows, to reverse the Democrats' 9-6 advantage, they have to expand the court by 7.5 members. Of course, they can't nominate half a justice, so they'd have to round up to 8. Regardless, the Republicans, to gain a 60% advantage, must expand the court by more than the Democrats did, by 8 as opposed to 6. The parties would surely continue to insist upon a 60% advantage, meaning that with each switch of power, they'd have to expand the court's size by 50%. The keynote is that they would have to expand the court not by a constant number, but by a constant percentage. This is what would cause exponential growth. If, for example, one side insisted on a 65% advantage and the other followed suit, they'd have to expand the court by 86% at each switch in power. How often would such switches in power occur? One occurred in 1992 when the Democrats won the House, Senate, and presidency. Others occurred in 2000, 2008, and 2016. And if the polls are right, another will occur in 2020. But we don't think the polls are right. We don't believe that at all. But who knows, man? Maybe it could. And this is why every single one of you needs to go out and vote. Every single one of you needs to go out and vote in person. There needs to be a Trump landslide for us not to fall into some sea of bickering that will end in disaster like what would happen if Joe Biden packed the Supreme Court. Let's err on the side of being less alarmist and assume the switch only occurs every 10 years. Let's summarily assume the parties would only insist upon a 60% advantage. Under these minimal parameters, the court would expand by 50% every 10 years. In 100 years, the court would grow by a factor of approximately 58, 1.5 raised to the power of 10, and instead of 9 justices, the Supreme Court would consist of 522 justices. Now, this may seem crazy, but this is reality, folks. If the Democrats start screwing around and packing the court, this is exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be like a little Cold War. Democrats are going to get what they want, and the Republicans are going to come back and get what they want. And by the way, what would stop if Donald Trump won like a majority in the House and they retain control of the Senate and Trump won the election again? What would stop Trump from doing the exact same flipping thing if the threats are coming from the Democrats? And again, I want to say that I don't think there's any way in hell Donald Trump should pack the court. This is a horrible, horrible, horrible idea. Surely one would be tempted to think voters and the two parties would see these problems and accordingly such growth wouldn't continue. Nope, I don't think the Democrats care. I think the Democrats care about power and that's all they care about. But why not? Imagine the following scenario. In the year 2120, the court compromises of 522 justices, 313 conservative, and 209 liberal. That November, the Democrats retake the House, Senate, and presidency. Following precedent, they decide to regain their advantage and expand the court to 783 justices. Some voters might say enough is enough. However, Democrats couldn't reasonably counter that. 1, it's what the Republicans did last time. It's our turn now. 2, is 783 really that much larger than 522, which, sounds crazy, but let's just think about it with much smaller numbers. Is 15 really that much larger than 9? And if you can make the case for that, then proportionally, man, it's the exact same thing. We're just talking about much bigger numbers at this point. 3, only by expanding the court can we do such things as guarantee a women's right to choose and ensure racial and social justice. Do we really want to sacrifice these goals just to keep the court a smaller size? And you know what they would answer that question to because they've been demonstrating it for the last 3+ months with rioting literally every single night, and no one seems to see a problem with it. Further, if such a scenario, no voter would be able to remember when the court was smaller than 40 justices, much less just 9. Would they really care if expanded a little bit more? Of course, the scenario would continue to repeat. In other words, if Democrats do as many of their leading members want them to do, including Jay Inslee, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, and Pete Buttigieg, as The Atlantic urges them to do, as vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris told the New York Times she's absolutely open to. And remember, Kamala would not answer the question in the debate. Mike Pence asked her like 3 times, are you going to pack the court? Are you going to pack the court? Are you going to pack the court? Yes or no answer, Kamala. And Kamala was like, well, Mike, we must take into consideration all these other... She spoke so slow to use up her time specifically so she wouldn't have to answer the flipping question. Answering a yes or no question is not hard. She was asked a yes or no question 3 times, refused to do it because she knows exactly what she wants to do, which is to pack the flipping court. We will essentially have 2 legislatures, at least when Democratic appointees, justices willing to read left-wing political and social goals into the Constitution, hold on to the majority of seats. It will be the end of the Supreme Court as we know it, the end of the balance of power among the 3 branches of government, and therefore the end of America as we know it. Would the Democrats do it? Given the left's record of destroying whatever it touches, most obviously the universities, high school, and journalism, and most recently sports and sciences, if you are a betting person, you should bet on it. This is yet another reason why everything is at stake in this election. So dude, so far as I'm concerned, when Joe Biden tried to say that the Republicans, by following a constitutional process, are packing the court, trying to convince the American people that that's what's going on. No. This is not messing around with trivial nonsense anymore. This is messing around with something that is actually really important. So far as I'm concerned, And again, I wasn't going to vote for Biden anyway, but Biden has disqualified himself with this statement. This is too much. He thinks you're stupid, and you need to show him that you're not by going out and voting in person on November 3rd. Listen, man, I know that Trump might not be your favorite guy in the world. I get it. Believe me, I get it. Trump is not perfect. He is a deeply flawed human being. But in this election, between these two candidates, he is actually the more sane choice. He's a more conservative choice. And believe it or not, Trump is actually the more liberal choice to boot. It is crazy. Listen, like, you can never... Life is just funny sometimes. You never quite know how it's going to work out. And believe me, I never saw this one coming. But that is the reality that we're faced with. In 2016, I held my nose and voted for Hillary Clinton, not because I liked her, not because I thought she was a great candidate. In fact, I was complaining for months about having to vote for Clinton. No, I did it anyway because I thought it was the right thing to do between two deeply flawed choices. We are faced with that reality again because the Democrats couldn't get their shit together to nominate a more appropriate candidate, and here we are. We have two imperfect choices. But Donald Trump, this time, is just the more sane one. All right, guys, that's all I've got. I'll see you soon.